Hello, everyone. Pete here. We've got a great show for you today. But before we start, we here at the Catching Flies podcast would like to take a moment to send our prayers and our best wishes to Damar Hamlin during this terrible ordeal he is undergoing. It's easy to forget that the athletes that we watch and discuss are simply human beings like the rest of us, but for their extraordinary physical gifts. Unfortunately, it sometimes takes moments such as these to reestablish that connection. Like many of you, Stephen and I have been moved by the outpouring of support this young man and his family have received during this difficult time. May the healing process begin, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. We cannot wait to hear from you, Damar. Hang tough.
Hello and welcome back to the Catching Flies podcast. I am Stephen Burton, and what a week it was. From New Year's dog and frog win to Monday night tragedy. It's been an insane week. Here to break it all down with me, as always, he is an author, a fantasy football manager. He survived the blizzard of 2022 and now gets to watch TCU dance this Tuesday night. He is the Greek philosopher, Pete Makadis. What's going on, Petey?
Hey, baby, what's going on? I kind of like what you said right there. You're gonna see that you want TCU to be dancing on Tuesday. That means we won on Monday, and we be dancing on Tuesday.
Yeah, I had a
Yeah, a little
slight
slip of the
error
tongue,
there.
little slip of the
Yeah.
tongue. It's been known to happen. I've done it myself. It sounded right to me. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Catching Flies. We are ready to do a great show for you today. We want to dive into some of what took place in 2022. As you all know, we didn't start the show until later in the year. Some stuff we missed that we want to talk about, kind of delve into both the sports and entertainment landscape as far as that's concerned. But before we do that, we do want to talk about this national championship game that we have upcoming on Monday, January 9th. And in
Not
doing so, we'd
Tuesday.
like to look at Tuesday's the day. And then in doing so, we want to look back at the games that took place briefly over New Year's Eve. And of course, the first game on the docket was Michigan and TCU. And I'm not going to lie to y'all, on that very first play of the game, it was looking real grim for the Frogs. Donovan Edwards broke through the line. That was the crazy part. In the preview we had last week, the whole thought was that Michigan might be able to run the ball outside the tackles. And on the first play, burst through the line. Our secondary, I was talking about our linebackers not having a lot of speed. Our secondary does have some speed. So we were able to track Edwards down on that play. The drive ended with no points.
Huge.
And that is what really gave me the light. I knew, obviously, I predicted we were going to win. I didn't do that just because I'm a fan. Otherwise, I would have picked us to beat Georgia too, and I didn't do that. It just gave me that light. It's like we forget just being in this game. We know we're in this game. We have the absolute opportunity to win this game. And then we opened up the scoring with a pick six. It was 7-0 TCU. And from that point on, we led the game. At no point did we ever lose that lead. It went up to 19. It dropped down to 3. We took it by 6. And the defense was interesting. They gave up some big plays, but darn it, they made some big ones too, huh? A couple of pick sixes,
Huge.
harassing
Yes.
McCarthy. And after that first run, we did a pretty good job of shutting down the running backs, at least. I know McNamara got away with a few runs there, and that's fun. Did I call him McNamara? I'm sorry, McCarthy.
Yeah.
I got the wrong quarterback. They both have nicknames. Sorry, but he got away with a few runs. And yeah, he's a little bit more athletic than I gave him credit for. But oh boy, I'd like to see a little bit more defense. I know a lot of people are saying how great a game that was. I guess I guess it was. I like to see more defense, especially when my team's on the field. A win's a win, and it's kind of crazy to say this, yo. TCU is playing for a national championship, and for all the years that we should have that we didn't, to come out of nowhere this year, I did not expect this. If
I
we
don't think anyone
finished
did.
7-5 this season, I'd have been happy. And now I would have been upset had we lost in the national semifinal. To a degree, I would have been upset. I mean, I would have looked back. Look, I'm telling you right now, TCU can go and play Georgia Monday. We can lose by 100 points, and it's gonna stink that night, and it's gonna stink
Sure.
for a couple of nights, and then I'll look back and be like, dude, we were in the title game. I don't like that mentality necessarily because it tells me it's okay that we lose, if we lose, I should say. But at the same time, big picture in it, it's
Well,
quite an accomplishment.
if I
Uh,
could just cut in real
yeah,
quick for you, it is quite an accomplishment. And what it tells you is your program is building. I look back and when you said that, it sparked the memory of Georgia losing to Bama in the title game and at the beginning of 2017. It broke my heart. You know, first time they'd ever been there, kind of got hosed by the refs, but we lost. It broke my heart, but it lit a fire even greater under the university, and it's led to what they are now. So hopefully, it'll light a fire under TCU, and they'll start improving their university and bringing in more top recruits with this. Like, this is how it could start for you guys.
yeah, a TCU top 15 recruiting class would be a landmark. So you're gonna start there. Before I pass this over to Steven, though, to talk about the Georgia game, a couple of things I'd like to mention. Number one, last week in our preview show, we had Steven's childhood friend, Nazareth Arthur, come on. And Naz, I'm sure you're listening. Y'all put on a show, dude. You did great. You came on our show last week as a guest, and you represented the University of Michigan football team as well as anybody could have. You came on here with class. You came on here with dignity. You did an amazing job. We were lucky to have you on, not the other way around. And I thank you personally for coming on and giving us your contribution on that. I'm sure we're going to have you on the show again at some point in the future. But for you to represent Michigan the way you did was top notch.
Yeah, he did
Second
an
thing,
excellent job,
yes,
for sure. I know he was upset. I did talk to him
yeah,
briefly, but yeah, he did a great job, and I'm sure he'll definitely appreciate this.
yeah. And the second thing I have to mention this. I have to mention this as a TCU fan. Okay, and his name did not come up in our last preview, but we're not here without Gary Patterson, bar none. Bottom line, no question about it. That dude made TCU relevant during this century. We got
Definitely.
the short end of the stick, and maybe for good reason too. When the Southwest Conference whole Big Eight thing happened, TCU got the boot out of that conference, and so did SMU. But TCU kind of went into the wilderness, Conference USA, the Mountain West, and fought back into the Big 12. And we don't do all that without Gary Patterson. And most of the guys on this team right now, at least the non-transfers, are Gary Patterson recruits. So I understand things went poorly. It ended last year in a way I didn't want to see it end. Not just the fact that he had to leave the program, but the way it happened. And he's been a stalwart for the university, and I've backed him all the way. And I still love the dude. We're lucky to have Sonny Dykes on the sideline right now, which is not something I expected to say at this time last year. I thought he was going to be a stopgap. I thought he'll be in there for 2 or 3 years until we find that next guy. I don't mind being wrong about that, but yeah, Gary Patterson has meant the world to this university. If by some chance we can take home the title this week, he needs to be acknowledged in some way.
Yeah, much like Mark Richt, he really laid the foundation
Yep.
for that university, got it, up to prominence and in the picture nationally by making, big time bowl games and having great, years where they probably should have been in the CFP already. And yeah, that's who he reminds me of is Mark Richt. He
I'll
laid the
take that.
foundation, great coach, and now TCU's reaping the rewards from his work.
Yeah.
So Great job.
Thank you. All right. So before I hand it over to Steven, and it's happening right now, but I did make one prediction about the Ohio State Georgia game that came true was that it was going to end right around the ball dropping. My goodness, it ended right as the ball dropped.
Unbelievable. They
So that was an
literally,
unintentional prediction by me, but it came true.
no, I found so many videos because I had to. They literally snapped the ball on the final kick with 3 seconds. So the ball was in the air as the big ball dropped.
Right.
And
But that game was
that
closer than we thought. Tell us
yeah.
about it.
No, I was terrified. I was so beyond upset because we came out flat, gave up big plays, and first of all, Ohio State, incredible team. They surprised me with how physical they were. I thought maybe that where it would be a huge advantage for us, but they came out prepared. Ryan Day, the head coach, did an excellent job putting together an incredible game plan, attacking our defensive weaknesses. And Marvin Harrison Jr., my God, for a freshman, this kid is unbelievable. Uh, a funny story about him: his dad was doing an interview pregame. You know how they have all these trailers and pregames and stuff on game day, and he goes, "My son, he's got 4 inches on me. He's not quite as good as I was yet, but he's getting there. But he's finally getting better because he started to listen to me. For years now, I've told him to stop listening to the coaches and just listen to me. And I guess when your dad's a Hall of Famer, I mean, he's got a point, I guess. But they were an incredible team. Georgia fought hard. There were 2 or 3 different points in this game where I thought, man, it might be over. When we went down 14 in the first half, I was nervous because their offense was just, I mean, if CJ Stroud, my God, if he's not the number one pick, if Bryce Young edges him out, I still think Stroud's going to be the best quarterback in this class. The accuracy. He was much more mobile than he had showed at any point in this season, and that really caught us off guard a couple times. I know even the final drive, he had the big 20-yard run to set up a potential field goal. Um, I'm jumping around a little throughout the game, but basically Ohio State dominated this game, and Georgia fought from behind. And third quarter, we fell apart again. And then at the start of the fourth quarter, there's a play that to me won the game for Georgia. And ironically enough, it was on a special teams play. We had made a stop and it was 4th and 1. Ohio State was going to punt. Well, they lined up in a weird formation, signaling that a trick play was obviously coming. Kirby Smart got a timeout with about 1 second to spare, and the official granted the timeout as the ball was hiked, and Ohio State got the first down, but then it was nullified because we got the timeout, and then afterwards they punted it to us instead, and that's when our comeback began. You got Stetson Bennett throwing a 77-yard bomb to Arian Smith, one play touchdown. And when you're down 14 with 8-9 minutes to go, that's kind of what you need as a quick score. And to get that and then get a stop, or well, I say get a stop, but we gave up a field goal instead of a touchdown, which to me was a stop because that night Ohio State's offense looked like, I mean, just the greatest college offense ever. They looked like LSU from 2019, for God's sake. But we get the ball back, we go down the field. Stetson Bennett is the most clutch quarterback in Georgia history. I'm not saying he's the most physically gifted, talented, but he is the most clutch, hands down. And he came up big, found AD Mitchell in the back of the end zone. We went up by 1 point with 50 seconds. And I was nervous because even with 50 seconds, I thought this is too much time. The defense did pretty solid. They held them, to where it was going to be a 50-yard field goal. And I think Ohio State really made a big mistake there at the end of the game. After the CJ Stroud run, it's first down from the 35 with there were still like 25, 28 seconds left. They tried to run it once. We stopped them, got a loss of 2, which was huge because the field goal kicker from Ohio State was perfect on the night. He had already made 2 45-plus yard field goals, hadn't missed an extra point. Every kickoff was a touchback. Like, the dude was having a great night. So losing a couple yards was huge. The next play, they do a rollout with Stroud, which blew my mind because I thought they were just going to try another run play or a quick slant, something to get 4 to 7 yards and waste a little bit more time, but just something a little positive. CJ Stroud about got sacked, which would have taken them completely out of field goal range, which would have been, amazing for me in my heart. But he ends up throwing it away. They call timeout. They got the field goal team coming out. Kirby calls timeout, tries to ice the kicker. Me and Pete happened to be at work at the time and was watching the ball drop and the game, but they had done a countdown over the PA system, and I couldn't watch. I was such a nervous wreck. I couldn't watch, but luckily Pete was right beside me, and I'm here 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! Hi! Everybody's cheering, clapping, and I see Pete's face. His eyes just doubled in size and went wide open, and I knew right away that he had missed the kick. I spun around, saw that it wasn't even close. Like, it was clearly he choked. It was nerves, which I mean, that's tough. You got 80,000 people. They had a sellout at Mercedes-Benz, the biggest crowd ever there. You got how many millions watching at home? Everybody's watching you at that moment. And if you make this kick, you guys go to the national title. And if you don't, you had a good year, but that's it. And the pressure got to him. He pulled the kick extremely, like, it was just a terrible kick. It was nowhere near. Georgia escaped, and I'm calling it that, escaped with a win. I'll take it. At no point in time did I enjoy this game. I had no fun watching this game. My heart, I don't know if it can handle another game like this against TCU, but certainly excited that we are still getting a chance to defend our title in the title game. Unbelievable job by Kirby Smart and the boys. I mean, literally the greatest timeout in college football history, and it completely changed that game. That's why Kirby Smart deserves to be and should be the highest paid coach in all of college football. And, to me, is the best coach in college football. So I kind of jumped around a little bit there, but that's pretty much the recap of the game. Ohio State, an incredible team. Their offense was humming. Marvin Harrison's going to be a top 5 pick if he doesn't get hurt. Just unbelievable season for them. But Dogs came out on top, and now we're ready to go frog gigging.
Yeah, we're the frogs. We'll be here for you, I guess.
Sorry, I got to throw in a few
No, it's
jabs.
okay.
Yeah,
That's fine. That's
just
fine.
fun, all in fun though.
I know, totally get it. And yeah, both games were, I guess, to the neutral observer, were probably fun and exciting. Just because people love points, I guess, and people love when defense doesn't show up at all. But yeah, that was the college football semifinal. All that talk, all this conjecture, all this prediction, all comes down now to one game, and it's Steven's team versus Pete's team.
Destiny,
Couldn't
man.
imagine, just wow.
Right?
I mean, even Georgia, as good as Georgia is, coming off an undefeated regular season last year, national champions. It's easy to see them tripping up one game, and they had a couple of moments
Yeah.
during the season where they could have. So
Missouri
just
had us.
yeah, so just for this game to be taking place at all is amazing to me. But we're gonna touch on that game in just a little bit. But before we do that, we want to go ahead and get into the meat of the episode. We want to talk about some of the things that took place in 2022. Just to let everybody know, we're not touching on important subjects really. We understand that, like, there's been war and invasions and all this other stuff going on in the world. That's not what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing a little bit more lighthearted stories. But to say that we're going to start lighthearted, we're actually going to start heavy handed. Steven, when was the last time you actually watched the Oscars?
Uh, Probably when I was a kid and
Yeah.
only had 4 or 5 channels when it was on, back before satellite came to our area. Yeah, it'd been a long time.
So the last time I watched the Oscars was when Return of the King won all the awards. I remember that day specifically. Number one, it was February 29th, 2004. So it's easy enough to remember that day. It's leap day.
Leap year, yeah.
Yeah, but then, before the Oscars, there's a situation involving a girl, traffic, and needing to use the restroom. And I remember all that very, very clearly. And it's been almost 19 years. I remember that day like it took place yesterday. I kind of remember the Oscars. I remember Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, like just like winning every award. I think they won Best Documentary Feature in Foreign Language Film too while they were at it. I mean, they just won everything. But since then, I just lost my interest in the Oscars, and I guess a lot of other people have
Sure.
too. So Will Smith had to stand up and slap some sense into people, or in this case, just slap Chris Rock.
It was
That was
unbelievable.
wild, wasn't it?
Yeah, on live
I mean,
TV, people thought it was a work at first. I thought it was a work. I thought maybe they had like a movie or something going to be coming out where they're just trying to drum up, publicity and everything. But that was definitely a huge story at the time. You don't see on live TV people get assaulted very often,
right?
like if you're not watching the UFC or something like.
Well, UFC
So
is not even assault. They know they're doing it to each other.
right, right, right. Yeah.
um,
So you don't get to see that kind of live stuff on TV, and I think the whole thing was kind of crazy because Chris Rock, he's one of the best comedians ever.
ever.
He's not known as like somebody that's going to attack people
He's not
or
hateful. No.
he's just funny, yeah. And he's making jokes about the crowd like they do at every award show, MTV, Oscars, otherwise. The host always takes a dig at 2 or 3 people in the crowd, and then they do an award, and then he does a joke, and then they do an award, and he decided to make a GI Jane joke, if I recall,
Uh-huh.
and Will Smith actually found it pretty funny. It
He
seemed at first,
laughed.
but until he got the old stink eye, and
It's like,
and
honey, we
then
got
all
to
of a
go.
sudden then it was oh, I'm jumping up and going up there and flipping out. I was surprised by it. I mean, it's it did cost him a little bit. A few films I heard ended up not being released or done because of this. But overall, it's like Will Smith's doing fine, so it's not going to kill his career or nothing. But it
No,
was
no.
certainly a huge story and wild times. I mean, if you can get everybody at a casino talking about the Oscars, then they succeeded, I guess, like, but it's certainly something I'll never forget. I mean,
Yeah, and I think Chris Rock proved himself a total G during the whole thing. He stood up there, he
yes,
took it. He
handed it
didn't.
with
Yep,
class.
he didn't hit back. Um, Made a joke out of it, and at the end of the day, look, okay. So this is my view on comedy. If it's not like the most recent thing that just happened that's tragic, you can make fun of it, and it's comedy.
Right,
If you set limits on comedy, then I'm not sure where it's like a whole South Park mentality. Either it's all okay or none of it's okay. But
right. It's a
and
First Amendment protection, even really. I mean,
well,
like,
if you want to
in
extend it
a
to that, sure.
right.
But
I know we avoid politics, but if you take comedy away, then it's just you're really taking all speech away. Like,
yeah, and at the end of the day, I don't want to dismiss or diminish, but when it comes to the things that are out there, something like alopecia, which is what Jada Pinkett Smith has,
right,
there are worse things in the world than to have alopecia. And again, not trying to hate on anybody. I wouldn't wish it on people necessarily, but it's hair
sure.
loss, and I think she looks great. To be honest, I mean, with her hair,
Yeah,
I
she's
think she still looks phenomenal.
yeah, she's a beautiful
Yeah, she's a
woman.
beautiful
Yeah,
woman,
it's
whether she has
a
hair or not.
right. I mean, yeah,
And
it's a disease
I didn't know.
technically and everything, but like,
Right.
you're being a little snowflakey there, a
Yeah,
little
and I didn't
sensitive.
know she had that. I just figured she's
I didn't
making.
either.
Yeah, I just figured she just
I thought it was
didn't
a
feel like having
fashion
hair,
thing.
you know.
Yeah, I thought it was a fashion thing
Yeah,
for sure.
and I didn't even occur to me because well, you have hair, you don't. I mean, I go back and forth between having hair and not having hair on my head too. So, but yeah, so total overreaction. It's unfortunate. It's kind of a big poster for masculine, toxic masculinity. Um, hopefully, the overarching lesson to all this is that violence doesn't solve it. You know, you got mad at him and you hit him. That's not what I
It's
want
not a good
people doing.
example.
Yeah, it's not a good
Right.
example. So I guess he apologized eventually. He actually wound up winning the Academy Award that evening, which was expected. It was
Right.
expected he was going to win it. And the movie
For
he won
this.
it for was King Richard,
Right.
which is a movie about the father of the Williams sisters, which
It's a
brings
good
us,
movie.
yeah, which brings
I
us
watched it.
very smoothly into our next topic. And we're going to talk about Serena Williams a little bit, retiring from the tennis world. So if you had a Mount Rushmore of women's tennis players and you put on, let's say, Margaret Court, Billie Jean King, Martina Navratilova, and Steffi Graf, if that was your Mount Rushmore, that's probably as good as it gets, you know? I think it's safe to say that Serena probably surpassed all of them.
Combined, even
Yeah, I
maybe.
don't know about
Like
combined. That's a stretch, but
to
I mean
me,
those are
Serena Williams
phenomenal.
is.
Yeah, those are
Go
phenomenal
ahead.
tennis players. Uh, it's as is in every sport, bigger, faster, stronger. It's tough to compare them directly because if Serena Williams played Margaret Court in tennis, she'd destroy her because she's so much bigger, faster, and stronger than her. But if Serena
Sure.
was around during that time and the training wasn't the same and technology wasn't the same, then it might not be the case. But I think it's a fair argument, and it doesn't have to be a belabored argument to say that Serena Williams is the greatest female tennis player of all time. Is she the greatest female athlete of all time? What do you
That's
think?
where I was going to. Yeah, I was gonna build her up to that point. Like to me, she's the greatest women's champion ever uh, for any sport. She flat out dominated tennis for a decade and a half, 2 decades. Like, and I mean, her sister was great too, obviously Venus, but she came nowhere close to Serena. She, to me, Serena Williams is the Michael Jordan of women's tennis. I mean, and it's not really close to me. Her physical gifts, strength, ability, and all that. To me, she's head and shoulders ahead of any other woman to ever pick up a racket. Like
No, that's fair.
she's,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, she's dominant. I mean, and I mean, when you're winning like 6-0, 6-0 in the Grand Slam championships repeatedly, like it's crazy to me. Like she had one of the greatest careers for any female, or to me even male. You can literally put her up there with the greatest athletes to me of all time. Like she was that dominant and just that good.
Yeah, I mean, tough to argue that point. If you're thinking about like the greatest female athletes of all time, at least in team sports or individual sports such as this, one name that's always brought up in the old school names is Babe Didrikson, and her whole thing was that she played multiple sports. So we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about like the dominance of a single athlete in a single sport. There have been some great female soccer players. I think Mia Hamm would have to be
Sure.
considered one of the greatest of all time. Um,
I mean, I'm trying to
if we're
think
talking
like
about
Lisa
level of
Leslie.
dominance, yeah, if we're talking about level of dominance, Wayne Gretzky's ahead of everybody else,
Sure.
and then maybe you put Serena there at number two.
Yeah, I mean, her and Jordan and Gretzky.
Yeah,
I mean, they are the definition of the goats to me when it comes to their sport. It's tough with team sports. Obviously, Jordan didn't do it alone like Serena did, and Gretzky, as great as he was, didn't do it all by himself. But as far as individual sports, it may be Katie Ledecky is swimming. Uh,
sure.
she's the god of swimming, or the goddess of swimming, I should say. Her and Phelps, but Serena right there to me, the greatest female athlete of all time. Her and Katie, and like I said, Mia Hamm's was unbelievable. Um, but they definitely are at the top, and for her to finally call it a day and and retire. Just hands down unbelievable. The way she did it too was very classy. To go out with her sister in a doubles, I thought was really cool. She's just unbelievable and inspired, countless girls and entire generation of tennis players. And really, it was at a time where there wasn't a lot of African American women or you know kids in that sport. Tennis isn't as popular as some of the other sports, and I went to school with a few African American girls that were definitely inspired by her. I mean, the beads in the hair, playing tennis, and just huge, huge inspiration to that community. And you gotta give her props for that. Like that's incredible.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Serena. You've been an inspiration to all, and I've always enjoyed watching you play. I don't watch tennis like I used to, I'm sad to say, but I was definitely still watching with a keen eye when you broke through. And when you beat Martina Hingis, I can't remember what year it was, I knew you were for real. And even I wouldn't have thought you'd have a 20-year career like you did. That for tennis, that's insane. A lot of tennis players are retired by age 30, and she pushed on for 10 more years. So thank you for all that. On to, I guess, lighter news, but I didn't watch any of this because it didn't interest me, but I'm not gonna lie, it kind of had my attention. Help me out with what you can here, Steven, if you can. I'm not sure what your knowledge base is on this. So Johnny Depp, Amber Heard had a big old trial. What was why did they go to trial?
It was basically like a defamation suit.
Okay.
She was
Depp
suing
filed
him,
it.
he's suing
Okay.
her because she supposedly or did write or was let me start over there, sorry.
Sure.
She had an interview come out where she was accusing Johnny Depp of abuse
Okay.
and supposedly had filmed him and had all these recordings from their surveillance system in their house and everything. And so they were, and then he countersued with defamation because that allegation cost him a few movies,
Okay.
including Pirates of the Caribbean sequel, I
Okay.
believe.
That makes sense.
I watched some of this on YouTube. I
Is it
followed a few
circus?
podcasts. It was insane. And she was asking for just like ungodly amount of money. It was like $50 million or $100 million. It was something insane. But that trial kind of captivated the entire country, if you remember. I mean, a lot of news people were covering it, a lot of YouTube podcasts were covering it, and so I watched a few videos on it. It was definitely interesting, and some of the stuff which Johnny Depp, I'm not saying he's a perfect guy by any means. He was drunk a lot and did a lot of seemingly hateful stuff to her in a few videos that I had seen, but she supposedly, and pardon my French, but shit on his bed
Yes.
and
That's the only
tried to
thing I really
blame the
know.
dog. Yeah, she tried to say it was the dog, and they examined this in court. And before a judge was saying, like, there's no way this little cocker spaniel or little Shih Tzu could make a turd this big. And that was a legitimate argument in the
Maybe the Shih Tzu
courtroom.
could.
Yeah, about the size of the turd and how it couldn't have came from the dog, that it had to come from her. And I mean, it was just nuts. And then the paparazzi made it worse, and then she kind of got caught up in a few lies, and Johnny Depp's defense team did what they were paid very handsomely to do, and that was make her look bad. But it seemed like she was lying about most of the stuff because they really tripped her up bad. But yeah, that was one of the craziest lawsuits I have
Yeah.
ever seen or heard of. I guess
And
Depp ended up winning in the end. He
yeah,
got he got like $10 million, I believe, awarded to him, whether she pays it or not, because she supposedly doesn't have that kind of money. That's left to be seen, I guess. But he definitely saved some face, I guess you could say. He wasn't, he's not an angel. Definitely has some problems, and with a few of these stories definitely made him look bad. But I guess he won, so you know.
Yeah,
At the end of the
and
day,
the
yeah,
whole
all you could
Amber,
say is it was literally a circus in the courtroom.
you
I
know,
mean,
the whole
but
Amber Heard bedroom behavior type situation that we
right,
just talked about has become a little bit of a euphemism for me. It's like, and again, I didn't watch the trial. I didn't really, except for the fact that the rock I live under isn't gigantic. I did catch parts of this, and yeah, when someone has a really bad game, oh look, he just Amber Hearded it. I mean, it's just like it's
right.
become
It
a
brings a new
substitute. Yep.
definition to shit in the bed for
Yeah.
sure, or the
And
saying that.
and
Uh,
the other aspect of this for me, I've known who Johnny Depp is for like 35 years. He was in
oh yeah,
21 Jump Street, the TV show, all the way back in the day. I don't think I'd ever heard of Amber Heard before this. I'm not sure I'm going to hear about her after this. I mean,
well, she was in the first Aquaman movie,
okay,
which was
never
a
seen
flop as far as
it.
superhero movies go. And this trial cost her several movies.
Yeah, I
When
guess,
all this
but
stuff come out, she ended up losing Aquaman 2. She ended up losing like this romance comedy movie. The title's escaping me right now,
yeah,
but
who cares?
it cost right. It cost her. It cost her a lot more than it cost him for
Sure,
sure.
I bet.
Uh, she she was made out to look like a crazy person, and rightly or wrongly, but
Yeah, we've been there.
right, who
Uh,
hasn't? what a
so
what a
speaking of
story though.
yeah, speaking of money, money has finally poured into college football. Now, NIL deals are is not new to 2022, but they started picking up during that era.
Big
Now,
time.
at the end of the day, again, we're not a political channel, but this is a capitalist country. It is,
Sure.
and you, me, other people, we are able to go out there and provide services, whether it be as a truck driver, whether it be as a plumber, whatever it may be, you provide such services, and in return, you are given money, and that's called a paycheck, and you're able to survive on that paycheck. And if you have value, you're talking about someone like Ric Flair the other day. He can charge however much for an autograph. If someone is willing to pay for that, if someone is willing to give Ric Flair $500 for his signature, then congratulations, Ric Flair. You have a commodity there. You have something you can do.
Right.
And that's just him on his own. So we're talking about, let's say, Patrick Mahomes. He goes out there and he throws a football and he occasionally runs a football. And he gets paid very handsomely for that because of the value he provides his organization, not just on the football field, but he might help fill the stadium, he might sell jerseys, he might do all that. It's capitalism, y'all. That's just all it is. So for years, for decades, these college kids were being, I almost want to say, forced labor. I understood they could quit whenever they wanted,
Right.
but and a scholarship has some value, some,
Right.
um, but a lot of these guys in the factories, when I say factories, I'm talking about like Alabama football, not an actual factory where people work, but Alabama football, Duke basketball, Arizona State baseball, whatever it may be, these factory schools where they just churn out pro after pro after pro. Not everyone necessarily will make it. They're there to play football. If you go to
Right.
Alabama to play football, you're not there to take oceanography. You're there to play football. But not all of those guys are going to go to the NFL. And if they have a chance to make some money off their name, image, and likeness, which is what NIL stands for, then why shouldn't they?
Oh, I agree with you
Yeah.
100%. For years the universities got away with well, we're giving you a full ride and
Yeah.
you can get a degree in whatever and
Yeah.
potentially make, you know, infinite amount of money with our degree. But in today's world, the reality of a lot of these, the reality is most of the guys, only about 1% to 2% of guys in all of college football. I think it's less than 1% actually make it to the NFL.
Right.
So, you're going to be using these degrees and getting jobs and stuff, which is great. You have your degree, but a lot of these guys they don't finish their degree, or they just don't get that. You're not making millions of dollars by getting a degree in education and then becoming a teacher after you played football, or what. I'm just trying to think of some type of example
No,
like
that's a
that.
perfect
But
example. Trust me.
the thing is, like, for years these kids have been preyed upon by these universities. Oh, for instance, Georgia, we're going to sell number 3 jerseys with Gurley on the back. We're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you don't get none of it. Sorry about it, but keep going out there and being an incredible running back. We're going to sell we're going to sell Matt Stafford jerseys, and it's like that for any school. They're going to sell their biggest players apparel, t-shirts, jerseys, whatever, and they weren't given a cut at all to the kids. It was fact it was illegal for them to. And now the schools see what a lot of people don't understand is they think the schools are paying the kids to come there. It's still illegal for the school to pay the kid. But every university has what's called a collective now. And the collective is basically all the rich people in that area or donors to that school, or like anybody who really, I could be in a Georgia collective. If I want to send them $10-$20 a month, I can. Anybody can do it. They go out to these top recruits and say, hey, if you were to come to Georgia, we could guarantee that you're going to be in 2 or 3 of these commercials. You're going to do 4 or 5 signings, and you're going to make $300,000, say, if you're a top recruit. Uh, some of these kids there's stories of millions and millions of dollars being thrown around to high school kids. I don't buy 99% of that. I've dived deep into college recruiting and follow it heavily. And the insiders that I've talked to and listened to, basically, if you're a 5-star quarterback, you're getting $500,000 to $1 million per year from these collectives. And it kind of goes down from there. There are going to be a few outliers, but the problem with this is basically this collective promises these kids money if they come to this school. Well, then there's no one to enforce them to give them that money, give the recruit the money. It's basically a promise, and people break promises all the time. That's why this year you've seen 25 people from Texas A&M enter the transfer portal. Last year they supposedly spent like $28 million on recruiting. All of these kids, they get the top class. Well, now over half of that class is transferred out, and I think a lot of it is promises being broken, money not being delivered. The school itself is not supposed to have any contact with this collective. That's bull crap. I mean, every school is gonna be in talks with the collective. I even say that about Georgia. I know Kirby Smart has to be working with somebody from the collective. Otherwise, how would they know who to even contact to potentially set up these deals? Like, uh, so basically, there's no one to enforce these collectives to pay the kids the agreed upon money. And it's a crazy situation. I don't know how it's going to get fixed. It's caused college football to get a little out of control. You're seeing all these kids enter the transfer portal and leaving their schools and going to different places, and it's going to hurt a lot of schools. It's going to hurt a lot of the smaller schools because they're not going to be able to get any of those transfer kids anymore, because they're going to just go to whoever pays the top dollar, and the top dollar is going to come from the top schools. It has changed the entire scape of college football and college basketball. It has added a little bit of parity, but basically, if your school's willing to spend, you can get anybody you want. And Deion Sanders proved that. I mean, firsthand at Jackson State. He got the #1 recruit in the country, named Travis Hunter, to follow him to Jackson State. And not that there's anything wrong with that school by any means, but it's just, if you're that high of a recruit, you don't go to a small school like that. Like, and the way they got him was with NIL. I don't personally have a problem with the kids making money off their name. I think they should. If they're selling '88 Georgia jerseys and it says Carter on the back, then Jalen Carter should be getting a piece of it. I think they should be allowed to do autograph signings and other things, commercials or whatnot, because so many of them aren't going to get a chance to make any money, any big time money at least once they're out of college. There are going to be those successful few, of course, but not often are you going to get chances in life to be like, hey, we'll give you $20,000 if you come sign, these 500 pieces for us to sell. And that should be fine for, these kids deserve it. They're working their tail off to make a star out of themselves, and they should reap the rewards from it. But it's a very slippery slope. I know I went over a lot there, but it's good and bad at the same time. And unless they can find a way to kind of govern it as a whole, I just think it's going to get real out of hand over the next 5 to 10 years.
Someone wants to pay you for goods and services, you should get paid. I don't care.
Yeah, I am perfectly fine with that. I think there needs to be some kind of committee or group, not Mark Emmert or the NCAA, but somebody
No.
has to enforce these collectives to honor their deals with these kids.
Yeah, it's a contract. Sign it. That's all.
Right.
Just sign a contract. All right. So NIL leads us to TOP, GUN. The movie of the year, in my opinion, from 2022 was Top Gun Maverick. Now, it's tough for me to say that with a whole lot of certainty because I don't really do the movies thing anymore. But Top Gun was a different story. Top Gun, the first Top Gun came out when I was young, very young, I think before you were born, Steven. And it's been so long since I've seen it that I kind of didn't even remember it. So got myself re-ingratiated to it. Sat down, watched Top Gun Maverick. It had good story, it had good characters, good acting, good action. Just that's it. That's all you want from a movie. You don't need someone beating a message down over your head. Just give me something entertaining,
Right.
and let me escape from the real world for a couple hours. And man, Top Gun did it. And in the year 2022, is Tom Cruise still the biggest movie star in the world? I mean, wow, it's amazing. Good for him,
Right. Good for
But
him.
yeah,
I'm
I
not the
loved
biggest.
Top Gun. I loved it. What'd you think about it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is probably the movie of the year. I rented it. I didn't see it in theaters, but thought it was great. I'd seen the original. Yeah, I was born in 1990. I think it came out in like '89 for some reason. That's what popped in my head. But if it did come out past then, I would have been really, really small. But I've seen the original, and I thought this one did a great job of giving kind of shout outs and playing off the original. The storylines kind of picked right up where it left off. It explained everything. Yes, maybe some of the moves that Tom Cruise does in the jet is like literally impossible physics
Yeah.
wise, but it looked cool as hell. And
Yeah, it's
it
not
was
a
great.
documentary, so we don't worry.
Right. No, he does some really cool stuff in them jets, man. If we've got some military that can do that, then shout out. Like that was
Right.
dope. But it was probably the best movie I've seen. I really like that and the King Richard movie a lot. Those were my two favorite movies of the year, I'd say.
And Maverick's not going to be winning any Oscars, and that probably means it is a good movie. So
Right, right. I'm not
that
a huge
scene,
Tom Cruise fan, but I thought he did a
well, he's a
fantastic job in
phenomenal
this.
actor. He's a
And he
phenomenal
still
actor.
looks like he's in his like mid to late 30s or
Right.
early 40s. Like, I
So
mean,
does Jennifer
the guy
Connelly.
just, yeah, she did a phenomenal job in
Yeah.
that movie. That's what I was going to go to
I didn't even know
next.
she was in it.
Yeah, I
Just
didn't
like,
either
oh,
until I saw it, and I
yeah,
was like, oh yeah,
Jennifer
that's
Connelly.
perfect.
But that scene with Maverick and Iceman,
Oh man,
especially, and here's the thing: if you've seen the first movie, it'll hit a little harder. But even
sure,
if you haven't, you maybe you're familiar with Val Kilmer's real life situation,
yeah,
and it just shows you how good some of these actors are. They can get across all that without talking.
right,
Just the facial expression and the emotion you can see. So that scene between Iceman and Maverick, the real life Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise, it's top notch stuff. So if you haven't seen Top Gun Maverick for whatever reason, do yourself a favor, but take a couple hours. It's not a critical darling. let me rephrase that. It is a bit of a critical darling. It's not one of those. It's not a think piece necessarily. It's not Schindler's List. It's not something
Action
that, yeah,
packed, yeah,
yeah. But it's escapism, and it's well
right.
done. And it's not just
Very
action for
well.
the sake of action. Everything has a reason behind it. It's not like, the Star Wars prequels where it's just all action and like you want to shoot yourself while they're talking to each other. It's actually really, really Top Gun Maverick is really good. Do yourself a favor if you haven't seen it, check it out. And hey, if you've seen it already, give it another run. Show it to someone who hasn't seen it. Great movie, great movie. Um, from the movies to the real life now, and we had a historic season in the American League this season in baseball, and that would be Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge broke the New York Yankees record for most home runs in a season and the American League record for most home runs in a season, all while playing a pretty good all around game as well. And there have been some people who have been kind of poking the bear and saying he's the actual true to life single season home run leader. Okay. You're welcome to your opinion. The numbers will always state otherwise. But I do want to throw some love at Aaron Judge for the season he's had. A lot of people will say, oh, he plays in Yankee Stadium. No, no, no. That's a left-handed hitter argument. That's the house that Ruth built, They built that stadium for Babe Ruth. They gave him a short porch in right field because he's a left-handed hitter. And Roger Maris, who held the record after Babe Ruth, at least the Yankee record and the American League record and a Major League Baseball record for crying out loud, left-hander playing in Yankee Stadium. Aaron Judge being a right-hander, he doesn't have the same advantage. He's not exactly known for hitting a lot of opposite field homers. Um, but Judge had, like I said, a good all around. You might argue he struck out too much, but let's not forget the man's 6'7", 6'8". He's got the biggest strike zone in baseball. And he hits for average. He played a lot of center field last year. Played it well. Runs the bases. Not as good as, a Trey Turner, but he could still, for a guy his size and for the power he provides. And with the new baseball rules coming in for baseball this season with pitch clocks and being able to throw to first base and bigger bags, he's got a shot at a 30-30 season. So the overriding thing about Aaron Judge is, did he have the best home run hitting season of all time? I say no. The numbers don't lie. He hit 62, but a lot of people say yes. Steven, give us your thoughts, Bubba. What do you think about Judge's season?
Well, it was an incredible season. I mean, statistically and analytically, one of the best for sure. I mean, not often are you seeing cut-ins from shows and other games to every time Judge come up to bat, they were cutting in with it, and it brought back a lot of like 1998 Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, Chase memories for me with the cut-ins. But he is an all-around incredible player. Like you said, he's huge. He's got a cannon. He played center field a lot better than what I thought he was going to. I thought he was more of a right or left fielder. He's a smart player. He 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 just killed the ball. I mean, I know I've heard rumblings that supposedly in Yankee Stadium they got to use the juiced ball from year prior a lot this year, so that may have helped and everything. But to me, all in all, the greatest home run season of all time, and as much as I hate to say it, because I'm not a huge fan of him, is Barry Bonds. To me, the home run king is Hank Aaron, but the greatest single season has to be Bonds. I mean, if you go 72, that's just absurd, and you have to think Bonds was going against a lot more Hall of Famers in the league at the time. I mean, you still had like Maddox and Glavine, Smoltz and Clemens and Randy Johnsons and Kurt Schillings and like guys like that in the league. There's not quite as many dominant aces in the league as today as there was back then. So to me, Barry Bonds hitting 11, 12 more and just got the talent level. I think Bonds is the home run king for sure.
Yeah, yep, 73 homers in a year. And if you want to use the argument that everyone else likes to use, then understand that pitchers were doing the same thing too. So level playing field, so to speak. But
Right.
the comparison is just for fun. At the end of the day, Judge had a phenomenal year. even when Shohei Ohtani kind of leveled up from his MVP season the year before, it's no surprise to see the Judge won the MVP. I just hope that he can maintain this for a few seasons. I've seen some stats about guys who are as big as he is dropping off at around this
Right.
age. Maybe he's the exception to the rule.
Well,
Just
for the Yankees' sake, they better hope so because
right, you think a
they're
lot
going
of
to be
money coming.
paying him for a long, long time. So if he falls off the face, they've got $300 million still
You
left to
know,
pay him. So it's going to be tough. But
so
it was an incredible year, though. I mean, you got to give him his props, but nothing will ever touch Barry Bonds. What was that? 02, 03? Yeah. So
yeah.
absolutely incredible.
So now we are talking about Aaron Judge taking over the American League. We're going to talk about Taylor Swift seemingly taking over the world. She is she's still only 33 years old, y'all. She's been doing this for a very long time.
Wow.
And when she first came out, I knew who she was immediately. I'm a fan of country music, and she hit the mainstream pretty quickly,
Yeah.
but you could just tell this girl had a lot of talent. And then you find out she wrote all her own music. And, we're not talking about Shakespeare here, but as far as songwriting, she is, even from an early age, proven to be an all time great. She knows how to connect, and she has just continued to grow in power. And in 2022, she did two things. Number one, she occupied the entire top 10 of the Hot 100 on Billboard, which is a little easier to do in modern days, almost impossible in olden days. All sorts of reasons why for that. But she still did it. She's still the first one to do it. Male, female, group, solo, doesn't matter. First. And she crashed Ticketmaster, man. Everybody wants the guy. I want to go see her live one day just to say that I did. I mean, for real. And I am a fan. I like, especially her earlier music. I don't know her modern music as well. That's just me kind of dropping out of the music scene a little bit. I'm sure in like 3, 4 years I'll catch up to everything. But yeah, she's a great singer. She's a great songwriter. A lot of people don't like her for a variety of reasons. That's fine. The talent is the talent. And like I said, she's just barely 33 years old. She's been doing it for like 15 years almost. I mean, there's no stopping this girl. And congratulations to her for all her success.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really my style of music that I prefer or like. I can't say I'm a huge fan of hers by any means, but anytime you do something, the Beatles, Michael Jackson, Elvis, Led Zeppelin, Elton John, band like all timers didn't do, that's definitely impressive. And to crash Ticketmaster in today's time is just insane to think. I mean, I don't think the Super Bowl's ever even done that, to put that in perspective, or any big big game, or Metallica's not doing that. Elton John didn't even do that. He's just had a massive world tour.
Uh-huh.
Like, she's definitely on a level of her own. And yeah, I mean, you got to give her massive props. She is country music, for the female side.
Yeah, and I think what she did very successfully, and I can't speak for all country music fans, but to make that crossover and still maintain your loyal base from your early days, they don't forsake her. They still love her, as far as I can tell. And she's added other legions of fans as well. Young women especially love her, and it's totally understandable why. And she has taken her talent and cultivated it into a monolith of a career. And all power to you, Taylor. Uh, Congratulations to you. You know, one day you're going to be the emperor of Earth, I guess. And we all have to deal with that and bow down and recognize your greatness. But just don't make us do anything we don't want to, I guess. But
And one last shout out, if she happens to be looking for a broke country boy that lives on a farm, just hit me up.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
We're the same age almost, so
Yeah.
perfect match.
One last thing we want to talk about 2022 here is a little shift in the viewership of the NFL. We're not talking about numbers, we're talking about accessibility. The NFL last year in 2022 officially moved its Thursday night package of games to Amazon Prime. And now is going to be
Prime.
look like it's going to be going over to YouTube as well. So, dude, when I was growing up, the NFL was on free TV. It was on CBS, it was on NBC, and it was on ABC for Monday Night Football. Occasionally, they'd
Right.
toss a game on to Sunday night on ESPN in the mid to late '80s, and then the NFL actually went to TNT. A lot of people don't remember that. It was on TNT for a few years for Sunday Night Football, where the first half of the season TNT would show the game, and the second half of the season ESPN would take over. Um,
I did not know that.
yeah, and just cable was in things. I didn't get cable until a little bit later, so I was missing some games. But now it's streaming services are picking up these games, and it's a it's indicative of the shift in the overall audience. The general audience. I prefer streaming. I can pick whatever I want. I haven't channel
Right.
surfed in years. I don't need to. I don't want to. But something like sports is a different story.
No, it's a huge
Yeah,
deal.
it's a
I got DirecTV just to get Sunday Ticket, and now that that's going to be going to YouTube and NFL Plus, which is the NFL's app. I think they're still working on getting that fully released, but I believe you're going to be able to stream either your favorite team's games or buy a package to watch all of them. I'm not quite sure exactly yet, but I think I heard some about the YouTube platform. It's supposed to be the kind of the same thing. You're gonna be able to buy, either the whole league or individual teams at a little bit lesser rate to watch the games. But yeah, I mean, you're talking multi-billion-dollar deals for for the league here. It's absolutely incredible money
yeah,
wise.
and I think the general viewer anymore, not just for sports, just movies are on Paramount now, HBO
Right.
Max, Peacock, instead of going to the theaters.
Well, you don't
You go
have as
back and
many
you
people.
you go back and you binge your shows, and I watch a lot of the Premier League on Peacock. I don't have cable. I've chosen not to have cable, chosen not to have satellite, anything like that. Um, if Manchester United's on Peacock, cool. If they're not, I catch a replay later, or otherwise I can just watch another game. It's just I think this is where the viewership is heading, and the NFL, as far as I know, is the first league to really hop in, and then they're doing it, incrementally. Thursday night
Sure.
football to start, but this whole YouTube deal, which again is a look forward, but we're talking about in the context of the 2022 move to Amazon, could just spark a whole new wave of how to watch sports. And it might not be free anymore, but people might get more for what they might get more than what they feel like they're paying. And that's how you make a consumer happy. I feel like this should cost $20 and it's only costing me 15. Awesome, I'm in.
Right. Right.
And the NFL fans, a lot of them love the content. They love to ingratiate themselves in the content. This might be their way of getting it done. So if the NFL and the NFL, Roger Goodell, his number one goal is to make that money, honey. And I guess he's good at it. He does make the NFL a lot of
He
money,
makes
but
$50 million a year. He better be good at it.
he gets paid, that's for sure. But yeah, and this could be the future of sports broadcasting.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I definitely think if the NFL has success, you'll see NBA and MLB follow quickly. I mean, there is NBA apps and MLB apps. I mean, I watch all the Braves game on the MLB's app, but the live streaming of games on these other platforms, it's whether you like it or not, that's where it's going. There's no stopping it now. I just hope I hope they have the option where you can pick your favorite team, and like I like with the MLB app, I pick the Braves. I pay $100, get to watch all their games. It's less than $1 a game. If you do the NFL, if you can pick single teams as opposed to the entire package, unless you're wanting that, at a little bit lesser rate, I think it'll definitely be successful.
And that there is about 2022 in a nutshell. Do we cover everything? Absolutely not. We just picked out a few stories that we thought were interesting, that interested us at least, that we thought that you might want to hear about. You may have forgotten about just a little bit, but we want to very quickly just take a quick look ahead at this championship game that's going to be taking place on Monday night. And as we stated on previous shows, Steve and I are going to watch the game together. We're going to enter brothers, lead brothers. Whoever wins, cool. Whoever loses, we'll be happy for the winner. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time previewing the game because I'm the only one last week who correctly predicted this championship game. The only thing I will say is that maybe, just maybe, Georgia has some vulnerability. And if TCU can pounce on that vulnerability, we can shock the world. As it is, I'm sticking with my original prediction. I think TCU just doesn't have the horses to keep up with Georgia. And, it's a super team. And when I say super team, I'm not just saying they're super. I'm saying it's a super team. It's built from a factory. And given the talent level, I expect Georgia to win the game by approximately 17 points.
Georgia definitely has vulnerabilities. They're weak right now, injury wise. They're banged up. A couple outside linebackers out for the year. We're going to be starting two true freshmen at outside linebacker, DN. That said, they were highly recruited kids. They're very very good players, but anytime you got true freshmen starting in a national championship game, it can be a little nervous. Um, I think Georgia is definitely deeper team. We go past the first 22 guys, and I think that's where we could have the edge. TCU is a very, very good team. They're going to come out nothing to lose. They're supposed to lose. Nobody's really giving them a chance. They're going to play hard. I think this game could be very close, at least through the first half. Georgia's got to play better than they did against Ohio State on defense. Now, TCU doesn't have a Marvin Harrison, but they do have a stud at receiver that's going to be a top 10 pick. And if Dugan gets hot, it could be a long night for the Dogs. I'm giving TCU a chance for sure. I hope Georgia. It took a lot for TCU to beat Michigan. A couple pick sixes. They did play great, but they made a lot of defensive plays that as long as Georgia doesn't turn the ball over, I don't think they can necessarily hang with them like they did Michigan. But that said, we got to come out, we got to execute, they got to play their game and not play from behind like what they did against Ohio State. They played Ohio State's game that day, and we got to play Georgia's game Monday night. So that said, Stetson Bennett, if he wins the second natty, he's definitely going to be the greatest Georgia quarterback in history. Be tough to argue. What an incredible story from walk on to now two national championship games. It's just absolutely incredible leader. But I think Georgia gets it done. I'm going to say 34-24. I think TCU will hang around, score a couple times. They might score late to make it a little closer, like I said there, that to get to that 34 mark. But I think this is going to be a tough game. We've got TCU runs a 3-3-5 defense, and it can be a tough defense at times. But what where they don't match up good with Georgia is that Georgia's got two great tight ends, and when you got two great tight ends that are big and can block in a 3-3-5, it creates a lot of running holes. So TCU is going to really have to fly around and stop the run, and I think that's going to be Georgia's game plan: run the ball down their throat and try to do hit play action shots when you get the chance. I fully trust Kirby though; he'll have a great game plan. But I think the Dogs come out on top, and next Tuesday when we're talking, I will be very very happy. But if they lose, I'll probably be very very sad.
Yeah, that would seem to be the case.
So overall, though, I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be closer than the sharps in Vegas think. They've got it at a 13-point game right now, and I think it could be closer than that even.
All righty, folks. Thank you for tuning in this week to the Catching Flies podcast. Ready to show myself the exit here. I just want to take the opportunity to thank everybody for listening. We're trying to build up a little audience here. We would always appreciate any time that you guys want to like, share, and subscribe our video to our channel and like and share our videos. We're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. And before I go, I'm going to hand this off to Steven to let him break down all the other social media aspects of it. Once again, thank you very much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.
Yeah, just quickly on Twitter, we are at Catching Flies W1. That's at Catching Flies W1. We are just barely under 100 followers. So if we can get that up a little more this week, that'd be cool. I'm on Facebook and Twitter as well under Stephen Burton. Pete has a Facebook. Like, subscribe, share, please. We appreciate you all. We hope you have a great time listening to this, and we sure have a great time talking on here. So we'll see you next week, and remember, go catch a fly.